international law. A war crime is...
It's not a war crime.
A war crime doesn't mean if you're attacked, you can break international law and the norms of war. Okay. It means you have to abide by the norms of war.
It's not a war crime for a country to defend itself against terrorists.
Israel committed war crimes from the very beginning.
Piers Morgan has built his entire brand on defending the establishment line, especially when it comes to right-wing narratives. We all know that by now. But every once in a while someone comes along who doesn't just challenge him. They dismantle him piece by piece until he has no choice but to cut the conversation short. And that's exactly what we're about to witness. In this exchange, British political commentator Owen Jones takes Piers Morgan head-on over the brutal reality unfolding in Gaza. What makes it so powerful is not just the facts Owen brings to the table, but how effortlessly he exposes the cracks in Piers Morgan's arguments. For someone who prides himself on being the tough guy of debate television, Morgan suddenly finds himself on the back foot, scrambling, deflecting, and eventually shutting it all down once the contradictions become too obvious to ignore. This isn't just another heated debate. This is one of those rare moments where the veneer of media bravado slips, and the audience gets to see what happens when a so-called heavyweight of broadcasting is completely outclassed. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now let's break it all down.
I thought the Israeli military response was a direct response to Hamas's official spokesman saying on camera for the world to see, we're going to keep trying to do more and more October the 7th.
Did you think this about Rwanda?
You keep saying what about
No, it's not what about it. It's about consistency. What happened in Rwanda? What's the difference?
I'm not going to talk about every conflict around the world.
No.
You've asked me a direct question. You've asked me a direct question about the first month in which Israel bombarded Hamas in Gaza.
No, they murdered innocent civilians.
They killed lots of civilians.
Thousands of innocent civilians.
It's not murder if you are doing a proportionate response to a terror attack.
It wasn't proportionate. Do you accept that?
I kept asking what is proportionate. Right? I have now concluded in the last few months it's gone way past proportionate.
But this is the thing. You spent months...
You don't blame Hamas for what happened in the first few weeks.
It was in the obvious...
Do you not blame Hamas?
The war crimes, I blame them for their war crimes.
You don't blame them for what Israel then did?
Every war crime Israel committed
is on Israel. So Hamas built a massive tunnel network. They then launched the worst terror attack on Jewish people
has no legal
since
standing.
The Holocaust.
Right.
And when Israel inevitably responds the way they did, that's not on Hamas.
There is no legal basis for what you just said. You cannot say when you commit war crimes, I was made to do them. Every war crime, legally speaking, that the Israeli military
But I don't think what Israel did in the first few months was a war crime.
But that's like saying...
It was a defence against Hamas doing it again.
But you wouldn't say that about the 240 Palestinians who'd been killed by the Israeli military in the months before 7th of October.
But
so what's the difference?
Israelis have also been killed throughout the 75-year conflict. Well, you can go back over 75 years and you can say each could respond to the other.
Okay.
But they've always done it on a much smaller scale. Do you accept that? And do you accept what Hamas did on October the 7th was on a scale totally out of kilter with anything that had happened on one day before? Do you accept that?
Yeah, obviously they killed
and you accept that by
more
building
Israelis on that day. But what Israel has done since is infinitely worse.
Fine.
Infinitely worse.
By building the tunnel network, do you accept that Hamas protected themselves at the expense of the civilian population?
Israel wiped out civilian...
Do you accept that?
Israel attacked civilian targets.
Do you accept that Hamas knew what was going to happen
Benjamin Netanyahu,
and built the tunnels to hide
Benjamin
it?
Netanyahu...
Do you accept that part?
Again, it's relevant to the point of Israel attacking civilian
that
targets.
Israel knew exactly... Hamas knew exactly what was going to do?
Benjamin Netanyahu, in the first week, was given a list of 100 targets by his general, and he said, that's not enough targets, I want 400, and he said, destroy their homes. That's what he said. This was revealed in an Israeli newspaper. Now, the idea that they were, the reason that they slaughtered so many civilians in that first week was because of tunnels is a lie, Piers, and you must know that's a lie.
No, it wasn't my question. My question was, do you not think that when Hamas planned this attack and carried it out, having spent 20 years building this tunnel network, they then hid in the tunnels and let their civilian population take the inevitable bombardment that was going to come back when they committed the attack they had committed? In other words, Hamas sacrificed their own civilian population. Now,
you're trying to deflect from Israel's direct responsibility.
You're saying that
we know Hamas committed war crimes. Everybody accepts that.
So when any country,
Israel is guilty of the war crimes it perpetrates.
So to be clear, then, your position is if a country has a terror attack on the scale of what Hamas did to Israel on October the 7th, any response by that country militarily is a war crime.
Well,
is that your position?
Is
that your position?
If you kill civilians through either disproportionality,
that's not a war crime.
legality,
That's not a war crime.
or intention,
It's not a war
Israel
crime.
made clear.
It's not a war
yes,
crime.
it is.
No, it's
Israel
not.
made clear
No, it's not.
from the beginning.
It's not a war crime.
Israel said from the beginning
You don't
they were
understand-
fighting human animals.
You don't understand international
Yes,
law.
I do understand international
You
law.
don't.
A war crime is
It's not a war crime.
A war crime doesn't mean if you're attacked you can break international law and the norms of war. It means you have to abide by the norms of war.
It's not a war crime for a country to defend itself against terrorists.
Israel committed war crimes from the very beginning.
We will establish the truth about the war crimes.
Do you think that Israel wasn't?
Do
you think Israel wasn't committing war crimes from day one?
I don't know. Because they wouldn't let journalists in. I don't know what they were doing.
They did it on camera, Piers. They did it on camera in front of the whole
But
of the
you
live
think that
from
any
genocide.
military response is a crime, and that's not true.
That's not what I said.
It's pretty much what you implied.
The reason this has happened is because Israel has been committing war crimes for generations. Literally, the Nakba, in which 15,000 Palestinians
And yet every war that started in the...
as they were driven from their
And in the
homes.
75 years of the conflict, every one of the 5 wars has been started by...
That isn't true.
Well, who started them?
Do you think in
Each of the
67
wars.
that's true? That's
Each
not,
of the wars.
That's absolutely not true at all.
You
But we're
think
talking about the Palestinian people
Just
here.
to be clear, you think...
Are you saying this? Are you saying the
You
Palestinian...
think all 5 outbreaks of war in the 75 years were
talking about the Palestinian people.
started by Israel?
The Palestinian people didn't start any of those wars.
Arabs started the wars.
So just Palestinians just get lumped in with Arabs.
Did Israel start those wars?
Did Palestinians start any of those wars?
Did
We're talking about Palestinians here. We're talking about the war on the Palestinian people. Yeah, but we're talking about the war on the We're talking about the war on the Palestinian people and their right to exist.
Is Israel ever allowed to defend itself?
Israel needs to become a single state from the river to the sea in which Jewish people and Palestinians have equal rights. That's what it needs to do. And until that happens, there will never be peace.
I believe in a 2-state solution where they all get the same human rights. On that, I agree.
OK, but the reason... The war crimes, which you keep erasing because you keep starting...
I want to see the evidence of the war crimes. So when it comes, I will be the first to lambast them.
They did them on camera.
But I prefer due process on these things.
Yeah, but when they declare to the world they're fighting human animals and they're going to... From the very beginning, they said...
I would call Hamas human animals.
They didn't say... They said civilians.
Right,
they said the residents of Gaza.
Right.
And they said they were cutting off, at the very beginning, water and fuel. Is a deliberate siege...
Do you know what?
Is a deliberate siege of a civilian population, is that a war crime, yes or no?
Listen, if you're asking me, do I agree with the occupation? No.
No, I'm talking about the siege. They announced the siege
No, they
of
shouldn't have
Gaza.
been able to do it.
Is it a war crime or not?
Probably.
So you accept they committed war crimes from day one, then?
I think the siege that they enacted because they were able to is indicative of the wider, bigger picture problem of the occupation. I agree with that.
So you conceded the point then. You've conceded the point that this doesn't begin, obviously, in the 7th of October.
Of course not.
But then...
I've never said that.
You would never say...
I think you should watch my show more often.
I've got life...
It's good to have you back.
Life's too short.
It's good to have you back. But honestly, life isn't too short for you to be better informed about what I do on my show.
Well, you don't accept Israel's
committing
genocide.
all these generalisations, which make me think you haven't watched it.
You don't think Israel's committing genocide?
You'd be better informed if you watched my show more often.
Do you think Israel's committing genocide?
As you were about our friend Bob Violin,
Israel,
who it turned out made you look a right chump. Anyway,
you look more of a chump when you won't accept Israel's committing genocide, which is really easy to do. You could just say it now. Is Israel committing genocide?
When the ICC says it's genocide, I will say it's genocide. So that's what we have.
That's the only time you're waiting.
That's kind of a legal process I'm waiting for.
OK, so you will never...
But we've run out of time.
OK, so...
It's good to see you.
If Hamas... You don't think Hamas has committed war crimes
either?
Come back again soon.
OK, fair enough. Hamas committed war crimes.
But you've not waited for the ICC to make their case?
No, because Hamas broadcast it on their own GoPros.
So have Israel.
We're committing war crimes.
It's literally on camera. Thousands of war crimes.
We've run out of time. Literally, the studio has run out of time. Okay. However, I would love to have you back more often.
And let's just pause for a second here, because this moment perfectly exposed the double standard at play. Owen Jones pressed Piers Morgan directly, "Is Israel committing war crimes?" And what did Piers say? He suddenly hid behind procedure, claiming we all have to wait for the ICC before making such a judgment. But the very next moment, when Owen turned the same question toward Hamas, Piers had no hesitation. He immediately declared, yes, Hamas committed war crimes. Now think about that. If you're going to claim you need international courts and legal bodies before making a statement on one side, why doesn't that same rule apply across the board? The selective standard isn't just hypocrisy, it's an open admission of bias. And this is exactly how figures like Piers Morgan operate. They project themselves as neutral referees, as if they're just asking the tough questions and waiting for the facts. But the mask slips the second the issue involves Israel. Suddenly, the rules change. Suddenly, Legal due process only applies to one side, while the other can be condemned instantly with no hesitation. What makes it worse is that this kind of framing isn't limited to Piers himself. You see it across the media, across political divides. Whether it's commentators on the right or even supposedly progressive voices on the left, there's this unspoken consensus. When it comes to Israel, they close ranks. They set aside their differences, abandon consistency, and fall back on the same talking points. And that's why Owen Jones's pushback in this interview was so devastating. He didn't just challenge the argument, he highlighted the bias in real time. Piers couldn't defend it, so he deflected, stalled, and ultimately exposed exactly what he was trying to hide. And that's the truth of it. These commentators don't actually care about consistency or international law. They'll always lean toward defending Israel, no matter how many times the evidence proves otherwise. Why? Well, the reasons vary depending on who you ask, but the result is always the same. A blind allegiance that trumps facts, morality, and even basic human empathy. Now, unlike Piers Morgan's evasions, the research is clear. International organizations, not fringe voices but respected global authorities like the United Nations and Human Rights Watch, have repeatedly documented what's happening in Gaza. They've called out Israel's military for actions that go far beyond defense. We're talking about strikes that wiped out civilians in their thousands. We're talking about schools, hospitals, and family homes reduced to rubble. And none of this can be brushed aside as mere collateral damage. Under international law, militaries are required to avoid targeting civilians, or at the very least, to take every possible precaution to protect them. Indiscriminate attacks, the kind that flatten neighborhoods without distinction between fighters and children, are banned. And yet those are exactly the kinds of attacks that organizations say Israel has carried out. And it doesn't stop there. Forcing civilians from their homes en masse, driving out nearly the entire population of Gaza, isn't just tragic, it's classified as a war crime. Destroying the healthcare system, cutting off supplies, and even targeting medical workers who are desperately trying to save lives. That's not self-defense. According to the UN, that's a crime against humanity. The picture painted by these findings is undeniable. This isn't about politics, and it's not about taking sides. It's about basic human rights, and whether we're willing to acknowledge when they're being trampled in plain sight. And here's where the conversation lands. Some of the world's most respected organizations, from Amnesty International to the United Nations, have warned that what we're seeing may not just be war crimes. It could rise to the level of genocide, the single most serious charge under international law. But let's be real. Do we really need someone in a courtroom to spell it out for us before we call it what it is? When entire neighborhoods are erased, when hospitals, schools, and homes are deliberately targeted, when an entire civilian population is told to leave their land or be destroyed, that's not some technical debate. That's genocide, plain and simple. And yet, figures like Piers Morgan continue to play games. They hide behind legal jargon when it suits them, they downplay atrocities, and they always find a way to excuse the inexcusable. These are the same voices that align themselves with leaders like Benjamin Netanyahu, no matter how extreme or destructive the policies become. It's not journalism, it's not debate, it's deflection. And it's why exchanges like this one with Owen Jones are so important. Because in this interview, Owen didn't just make good points. He exposed how fragile these so-called defenses really are. He showed how quickly the mask slips when powerful voices are forced to confront the reality they've been avoiding. So here's what I want to know. What do you think about Owen Jones shutting Piers Morgan down? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button to help push this video out further. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown. Until next time, this has been The Whip Line. Thanks for tuning in.